appreciate all your answers to the question, especially in regards to when people say we should wait for a better time to ask for something. And they'll say now's not the best time. This is one of the things and a lot of times we quote this in regards to politics, but this can also be applied to labor as well. This is from the letter from Birmingham jail by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he says, first, I must confess over the last few years that I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached a regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block is in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is in the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is in the presence of justice, who constantly says, now think about this when it comes to certain union leaders, it may be to certain people who are CEOs or who are investors within different businesses, say, I agree with you and the goal that you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action. Basically saying, well, a strike is really going to be painful, but at the same time, it's like, that's the point. Continuing, says, who paternalistically feels that they can set a timetable for another man's freedom, or another worker's freedom, as we can put it that way, who lives by the myth of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait to or a worker to wait until a more convenient season. So we can actually take what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said and just take it even away from just politically, but also apply it to workers as well, because that's the point. And between Kshama, Carl, and Steve, you guys have eloquently stated that we cannot no longer wait for a more convenient season. We have to swing for the fence now because they're never going to give us a convenient season. It's never, ever going to be convenient. And if any of you want to jump in and harp on that point as we, start to close out on this segment, please feel free. We can start with Steve.
Yeah, I absolutely like this. This is key. We've got a real moment here. I mean, the last time we saw a strike, and it wouldn't be as big, but the next largest strike would have been the 1997 UPS strike, and that lasted for 2 weeks. Won at that time the best contract that had been seen in a very long time, and just like today, we have spent, in some locals more than others, it's definitely true, but we have spent a year, and particularly the last few months, preparing our members, preparing for the reality, threatening the strike. There's no moment that 340,000 private sector workers are coming up anytime soon with as much social weight as we have that are able to lead in this way. And so if we would, I absolutely don't, but if we were to concede there was some best time, this would be the absolute best time. And it's absolutely true that any time is the time that it needs to be done. But right now is a prime moment. And I do want to say, like Kshama mentioned this meeting earlier, but I'm one of many UPS Teamsters organizing in my workplace for a no vote on this contract. And if you are a UPS Teamster who feels the same and wants to talk with like-minded folks about how we build the strongest possible no vote and win the strongest possible contract, please join Workers Strike Back and Teamsters and Joe Allen, who wrote The Package King about the history of UPS and the Teamsters, this Sunday on Zoom at 3 p.m. Hopefully we can get a link up for that or something. But we want this meeting to bring no voters in UPS together to really coalesce the strongest possible no vote and arm folks with the best points, information, and tools to have effective conversations in their own workplaces. This isn't just about this is very much about the broader labor movement and how we can take the lessons from this forward, but it's also about how we can use the lessons. And I think this is important about why I'm a member of Socialist Alternative. In addition to it, Teamster, is that the history of Marxism proves that the history of labor has had many lessons for us. Marxism is, in my mind, a good way to describe it is a best practices guide to winning for the working class. The methods that have worked and those that haven't, the tactics and strategies that have worked. And That's what we need is this wider movement, but we need to focus in right now on this contract battle and bring people together and organize in their workplaces. And Workers Strike Back can arm folks with those tools to organize in their workplaces, build the strongest no vote. So please, tomorrow, 3 p.m. on Zoom, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'd love to see folks there. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
About Workers Strike Back. This is vote no, escalate the fight to win, strong contracting, UPS, as Steve was talking about. And then if we go back to Workers Strike Back, Kshama, as well, you wanted to focus on the Zoom meeting that you guys will be having.
Yes, that's the same meeting. And yeah, and just to clarify, it's at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And so it doesn't matter where in the country you are, you should definitely join this Zoom call if you're a UPS Teamster. But also if you're not a UPS Teamster, but you want to stand in solidarity with workers who want to fight for a really strong contract, or if you want to learn how to fight for a strong contract in your workplace, if you're unionized, or if you're not unionized, but if you want to connect with really strong union workers and other labor activists who can help you fight in your workplace, then you should come and join this call. So it's open to everyone. Obviously, the topic will be the UPS struggle. Steve will be one of the main speakers, but we'll have other speakers as well. And so there is a lot to learn from here. And if I might just add, the points that were being made earlier, I think it's important that you were talking also about from an internationalist standpoint, because the capitalist class is international, it's global. Capitalism is a global system. And what we are seeing is the new crisis of capitalism has propelled the global sort of geopolitics into this new Cold War. And so we are seeing many phenomenon break out of that. The war in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine and Russia. It's sort of the opening salvo of this new Cold War between the China-led bloc and the US-led bloc. And we have to be crystal clear that both the US working class and the working class abroad are the ones who are going to be paying the price in this new Cold War, just as it has been in every other era under capitalism. And the only gains that we win is when we get organized and fight back. And as was mentioned earlier, it's when we come we become as strong as to build almost revolutionary movements. That is when we see the concessions. That is when the ruling class is forced to concede. But we want to go beyond that, because we cannot. The system of capitalism has proven itself as an utter failure when it comes to, obviously, the climate crisis is not going to be dealt with on the basis of capitalism. But even if you look at the basic questions of, can we end poverty? Can we end malnutrition? Can we end war and bloodshed and ethnic strife? None of these what in my view should be basic criteria for a decent global society. None of those goals are going to be fulfilled on the basis of capitalism. So not only do we need to build fighting movements like a strike action with a no vote in UPS to win a strong contract, and then taking labor struggle forward on the basis of that. But we want to go much beyond that. We need a different system entirely. We need international socialism. And so that also points towards internationalism as well. And I think if you look at the 60s and 70s, what we see is, for example, the Vietnam War was not ended because a few Democrats here and there they thought that was the right thing to do. Absolutely, U.S. imperialism is absolutely a bipartisan project. They are both cutthroat imperialists. Those both the Republican and the Democratic Party, and they both have blood on their hands, both American and from other nations. And the only way that the Vietnam War, for example, was ended was by soldiers themselves, the rank and file of the military themselves, refusing to take orders anymore and building a powerful struggle there. And then that joined with war veterans marching on the streets in the United States, and all of that coalescing with the Black Power movement, the Black Liberation movement, the movement for indigenous rights, the movement for women's rights and abortion rights, the labor movement and strike actions, all of that coalescing together and putting such a scare into the Nixon administration and the ruling class as a whole, that some of the most progressive things happened under Nixon, not because he was in any way progressive. He was a downright reactionary and an odious figure. But what it shows is that even reactionary governments can be overcome when there is the fear of such kind of mass movements. And I think that's the leading light to keep in our minds, that is where we need to go if we are to make any kind of change on whether it is issues of oppression or issues of better working conditions and wages.
Thank you so very much. And also, Carl, some of your closing thoughts as far as worker solidarity and improving the class consciousness, especially within the United States.
Yeah, I just want to expand a little bit on what I said further. By the Democratic Party establishment is trying to convince the working class that you just got to work with us, work with the established framework, so we can counter the right wing Republicans, and everything will be fine. Well, that's not how it works. Biden got elected. What have changed? I mean, even Obama ran a platform of change, and what has changed, right? Biden got elected, it's only getting worse. And by not struggling for your own rights, you are not only conceding your own ground, you are actually writing a blank check to the working class, to the ruling class, for them to do whatever they want globally. And this is why it's not only for workers' self-interest to fight, but also a moral imperative to stop the bloodthirsty U.S. ruling class in their tracks, and just no war but class wars, and we need to start that today, not tomorrow, not the day after. We need to start that today. The globalist capitalist system is already in intensive care. Right now we gotta kick. We gotta give it a couple kicks.
Thank you so much. Rome, you decided to join. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was doing some yard work, slaving for my girlfriend, and I had to add you guys.